Hey everyone, Robin Riley for Bello's Designs. Welcome to my video tutorial. Today I'm going to show you an easy way to create bubbles. This will be a fun card to make, and I think you will be surprised to find out how easy these bubbles truly are to make. Before we get any further into the video, I would like to invite you to join us in our Facebook groups. We have two of them, the Bello's Design Lounge, where we showcase all of our Lavinia products. The other page is called Bello's Design a la carte. There we showcase everything else that Patty currently has in her shop. We are on other social media platforms like Instagram, Pinterest, and TikTok. All you have to do to find us there is to search the hashtag Bello's Designs. Okay, let's take a look at this card. Lots of fun here, and it's so easy. You will be surprised at how well you do in creating these bubbles. I have tried other ways, and I also have another video available on our site for creating bubbles, but this is by far the most easiest bubble I have ever created. I saw a woman by the name of Natasha Foote demonstrate this on YouTube, and I thought this would be perfect for me to share with you. So let's look at the supplies that I used here for this card. The Lavinia, the card that I used, my base is 4 1/4 by 5 3/8 quarter. This is a smooth, heavy cardstock. The card base itself measures 6 inches by 9 inches, and it's scored at 4 1/2 inches. The stamps that I used, this is the Rory and Darcy set, LAV 549. I'll be using this little guy here, and I don't know who Rory is and who Darcy is, but that's the little one I'm going to be using today. The other stamps that I'm using are Tia, LAV 699, and I also have one of the newer fairies. This is Everly, and she is LAV 766. I think she is so dainty and precious. All right, let's see the stencils that I used here. In the background, you can see, let me hold this up closer, you can see very faintly one of my most favorite Lavinia stencils, and this is the flower leaf stencil. I have also used, for the bubbles themselves, I have this sheet called Circles Galore by Bello's Designs. And this sheet has, I think you can see, numerous different sizes available of circles. And it also comes with the masks. Those are the pieces that have been cut out. But today I'm just going to be using the stencil itself. I will be using the following inks. Old paper, and these are all Distress Oxide inks. I'm going to be using old paper, wilted violet, mustard seed, and worn lipstick. Those are the colors that I used for the bubbles. And I'm going to be like very honest with you guys. I made this card several days ago, and I don't remember the exact colors, so I just went through my stash and guessed. It might be close enough, I think. And for all of the fairies, I will be stamping and versifying Claire Nocturne. To create the bubbles, along with the Circles Galore stencil that Patty has in her shop, I will be using my blending brushes. As you can see, they're well loved and well used. You use whatever type of blending brush you have. You could use makeup sponges, but I think that might be a little tedious for this one, and you'll see why as we get started. The other tools that I need here, I chose 4 not random colored pencils, but 4 pencils that I could match closely to the inks that I was using. So you want to keep that in mind. I will be using glitter pens, again, matching. I have a purple and a pink here, matching my background. Now, in the bubble itself, I hope you can see a little bit of the reflections that I created. Those are the white marks. And to create that, you could use a Posca pen. I find the nib is, even on the small nib, I have a little trouble with that, so I don't prefer that myself, but you could try it and you may absolutely love it. You could try a white gel pen. You could use the Signo white pen and give it a go, but this is what I use today. I use this white ink. This is Dr. P.H. Martin's bleed proof white ink. I really like this because nothing shows through this. You get a nice thick coverage of white and you don't have to worry about any inks underneath bleeding through. To apply that, I will be using a really fine round brush. This is a number 12. It's extremely small. I think you can see here up against my hand, I hope, maybe up against the card. You can see how fine of a brush that is. I will be using my stamping platform, which I use a Misty. And I will be putting everything together using the Art Glitter Designer Dries Clear adhesive. All right, let's get started. Now, first thing that I will do is create the bubbles. Now, again, using that 4 1/4 by 5 3/4 inch, I'm going to come in and just randomly choose some bubbles. This is your preference. You do not have to do the exact same measurements that I'm doing. You just choose the size bubbles you'd like to use. Now, here I chose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different size bubbles, and I'm going to try to stick to that. First, I'm going to offset a bubble. I'm not going to have the complete bubble on the page or on the card topper itself. Now, as you can see, this stencil has some circles that are close to the one that I'm going to start with, and this is the 2 1/4 inch circle. So what I'm going to use is some Sweet Poppy low tack tape to mask off areas that I do not want my brush to enter. So bear with me as I pull this off and gently place it over those circles that I'm afraid I may run into. And I just don't want that to happen. This Sweet Poppy tape is really a good tape to be using anytime you need to mask off an area. It doesn't rip your card. It stays adhered rather well. Okay, so coming in, I'm going to start. This is all random. This is, you pick the color you want to start with first. I'm going to just grab randomly. I'll start with a mustard seed. Now, I don't want a lot of ink on here, so I'm just tapping gently into the ink. And I'm going to grab a piece of paper towel and just tap off. I don't want a lot of ink. I want this to be very light. And I'm going to just very gently, in a circular motion, apply some yellow. Then I'm going to do the same. Here is the worn lipstick. Let me add some ink to that. Tap off all the extra. I just want a very light coat. Again, randomly, I'm choosing where I place this shade. Old Paper. This is such a beautiful shade of green, I think. Tapping off the excess. Now, my blending brushes are very well loved, so this very well could have so many other shades of green in here, and I'm very much aware of that. So my shade of green, when you see it, may look a little bit different if you're following along and using the exact same green as I am using. It's just because of the buildup of inks, but I don't find that to be a problem. All right, my next shade that I will do will be the worn, oh no, I did the worn lipstick, I'm sorry, the Wilted Violet. Again, I'm just getting a small amount of ink onto my brush, tapping off all of the excess, and coming in to create a very light shade of purple. Let me remove this, and you will see the image of the first bubble. Now, I'm not going to use that size again. That is my largest bubble. So I am going to scoot down to the next size, which will be, I believe, the 2-inch. That might be a little bit bigger. 1 1/2 inch is the one I'm going to use next. Again, I'm just randomly placing this, masking off the areas that I don't want my brush to enter. I think I'm going to be safe there. I'm going to keep my fingers here. That way I know I won't run into that. I'm going to use the same 4 colors, but this time I am not adding any more ink. I am only going to use the ink that is already on the brush. And chances are I am not going to have to add any more ink unless one is extremely dry. But I will just continue placing these 4 colors randomly. I'm going to try to alternate the colors so that I don't always have the purple and the green beside each other. I'm just going to just do that. So that's kind of one of my nerdy tendencies. You do you. However you like to do it, that's fine. Okay, the next size I'm going to jump down to now. I will not make another one this size. I'm going to go down to the 1-inch circle. And I'm going to mask off those areas one more time. Now, don't forget to mask off the edges here. And as you can see, I've been using these same pieces of tape. I can get a couple uses out of each of those very easily. So again, I'm not re-inking. I hope this isn't too hard for you to see, but the lighter the appearance of the ink, I think the better. That one's a little bit dark, but I think I'll be okay with that. And I'm only doing 3 colors here. You pick the number of colors you want in your bubble. You're going to get some blending and mixing of colors, so you may eventually see more than one color appear other than the 4 that we're using. All right, I'm going to add a few more of these 1-inch circles. Again, I'm going to mask off those areas that I don't want to have an issue with and come in. As you can see, I'm not even cleaning my stencil off. There's a little bit of ink on the stencil itself, but to be honest, I really don't think the little bit of blending that's going to take place will create any mud. You know, you get that mud look if you get too many colors blended together or some of the wrong colors blended together. Okay, so there we are, slowly building. I'm going to do one more 1-inch, and then I'm going to drop down to smaller bubbles. Let me see. I'll do that just because. Okay, let's get, as you can see, I have yet to add any more ink to my brushes, and I'm really trying to stay on the edge of these circles. I don't want the majority of my ink going in the center. I kind of want to create a highlighted area there. All right, let me remove this tape, and we're going to bounce down now to a smaller. And what I'm doing here on the side is I'm just double checking my measurements here. This is going to be a 3/4 inch bubble now. And I am going to be placing it to appear that it's behind another bubble. And to do so, I'm just going to place my stencil on top of a bubble. And I'm going to actually grab some fresh tape now. I've kind of made a mess of the bits I was using. And I am going to mask off those areas that concern me, that I could make a real quick mistake with my brush. And I am also going to mask off this bubble as close as I can get to it. And I'm going to use, again, same inks, just adding a little bit at a time. These smaller bubbles are a little trickier to use the brush on, but I tend to try to aim like the tip, the top of my brush over the edge and just very gently add the ink. This purple really has too much ink. I need to knock that back. That's starting to bother me now a little bit, but you know what, it'll be fine. Okay, now see how that appears? Now, there is somewhat of a line because I didn't do a great job taping that, but you know what? It'll be okay in the long run, in the end, and you'll see how I fix that to cover it up. All right, let me get another 3/4 inch bubble here, and then we'll move on to the next size. Okay, I'm masked off pretty well there. Get some pink. A little bit of this yellow. I like when pink and yellow blend together. You get that nice peachy color. And let me get some green down here. Okay, there we go. Now, let me remove this tape. It's a little too inky. I'm going to go down to a smaller circle. And I'm going to take a quick measurement here on the side so I can tell you what it is that I'm using. This is the 1/2 inch bubble. And this little guy is tiny. So this one, you just, you know, the best advice is to go slow. That way you can get all the colors in on that small area. And if you only end up with 1 or 2 colors, that's okay. That's not bad at all. It'll still look like a bubble. Okay, again, not trusting myself. I'll mask that off a tad bit. Just using the tip of that brush so that I can get some color on the edges. Remember, this purple had a little more ink than I wanted, so I'm going to go very light. There we go, another little bubble there. I'm going to create a bubble behind here, hoping to do a better job than I did the first time around in covering that. All right, you can see how you could really just take off and make bubbles over and over and over again because they are that simple. I think maybe just one more bubble and I'm going to call it quits on the bubbles. Let me get one more at the top. I wanted the appearance of the bubbles floating from the bottom left-hand corner up to the right-hand corner. So that's why I'm going to go one more little one here. Get a little bit there, try to get a little of that peachy color to appear, and a little bit of that green. So you can see I only ever inked my brushes once, and even at that, I took a lot of the ink off. Now remember, when using any type of stencil, you want to clean your stencil. You can take this and place it in soapy water in your sink, and it just comes off beautifully and instantly. If not, you can use a microfiber towel with water, only water on your stencils. If you need to use a little bit of soap, go ahead, that's not going to hurt, but just make sure you dry it good so that the next time you go to use it, you don't have any leftover ink. And I always flip mine over to get the back just in case ink has snuck underneath there. Okay, so here we are. Here's our bubbles. The next thing I'm going to do is come in with my stamping platform, and I want to stamp my pretty little fairies in place. Let me make some room here. Get my magnets in place. I'm going to move over just a little bit because my little Everly, I don't have her 100% on. I have a little bit of her tendrils falling off here. So I want it to appear as if the fairies are actually sitting on top of the bubble. So I make sure that some of their bottom and their legs are on top of the bubble. You'll see what I'm talking about, I think, a lot better once I stamp this image on here. All right, I'm just going to hold that for a few seconds. Now, sometimes when you're stamping on oxides, you'll actually see the oxide coming through your VersaFine Clear or whatever you're using. But being that this is such a light coat of oxides, that really shouldn't happen. And here, it didn't happen. I'm okay with that print. I'm going to leave that where it is. Now, get in a good habit of cleaning those stamps immediately. Again, just with a microfiber towel and water, nothing else. You do not need to use any other product than that. Now, if you look carefully here, or closely I should say, I think you can see how her bottom is resting kind of in the bubble just a tad bit. All right, let me bring in Tia. She's one of my go-to girls now. I really like her a lot. And I am going to move this into the corner. For me, I get better stamping, especially if I have to re-stamp, say a second time. I make sure I get that in a place so that I can re-stamp if need be, and I shouldn't have any trouble. Okay, let's get some Nocturne on Tia. And give her a go. Again, I made sure that her bottom was down in the bubble a little bit to give that appearance of her sitting in the bubble. Okay, now I didn't get a perfect stamp, so this time I'm going to hold my breath and re-stamp. I say hold my breath because periodically your card will move. It has happened to all of us, and then you don't get a nice stamp, but we're gonna hope this one worked, and it worked, so I'm satisfied with that. Let me get Tia cleaned off, and we'll bring in our little buddy here down in the corner. And I want him just to be pointing up at the bubbles and the fairy, wanting it to appear as if he is in awe at what he is seeing. Okay, let me grab that magnet just to hold that in place in case I need to do a double stamp again on him. All right, here he is. All right, I'm happy with that. I will not have to double stamp him. Now, if you don't have a stamping platform and you're using acrylic blocks, you know that it is virtually impossible to re-stamp something that you've already stamped. So the next best thing you can do is to take a black marker or a black pencil and just color over that black area that you didn't get a nice image on. That's just an easy way to save it. Okay, now the next part, I'm going to come in with these colored pencils that I have, and I'm using a combination of Prismacolor and the other one is the Polychromos. It really doesn't matter at this point because we're not doing any blending. All I'm going to be doing is creating an outline of the bubbles just to create some depth. And to do that, I just use the pencils and I do match the green to the green area on the bubble. And I'm going to make a very, very fine line over that green, like right on the edge. This is the absolute only time that I ever have my pencils sharpened to a point. I rarely ever do that because, number one, they break when they're that sharp, typically. And that's just not the proper way to use a colored pencil. But as you can see, all I did was add a very, very fine line in that green area. And I'm going to do that around areas that are green. Again, just a very fine line to create some depth. It's almost like creating a really fine shadow. And you can go as dark as you want. I think the darker you go, the more depth you create. Keep in mind not to press hard when using colored pencils. If you see a waxy sheen on the top of the colored pencil area, that indicates that you're pushing far too hard. So the lighter you can apply the coat of ink, the better. And the other part of that is that you can erase. Remember, this is a pencil. So if you're doing it lightly, then chances are if you do mess up, you can come in with an eraser and remove most of that. I'm not saying all of it, but you can get most of it off. So I'm just continuing with the green, adding some darker areas. This is something you can play with for a very long time. I like practicing creating depth and shading. So this is one of my things that I just absolutely love to do. And I can sit and do this for a long, long time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this green down a little bit further because I kind of made a mess up there. I got a little bit too much ink over, but I'm not going to fret over it. Now, using the yellow, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come in and add that real fine area of yellow to each of the bubbles that has yellow. Just highlighting. Okay, I'm going a little faster here so that you don't have to be bored to death watching me do this. Now here's one that I did that I didn't get close enough, so there's a white gap. So what I'm going to do is come back in with that green pencil and just very lightly shade that area in with the green pencil. And only you and I know that I did that. Okay, I think I'll add just a tad bit of yellow here. Now please, you take more time than what I'm doing. You will be far better off than what I'm doing here if you take your time. I'm doing this so you don't get bored to death watching me. And I'm surprised I haven't made more mistakes, to be honest with you, because I am kind of rushing this. But I think you can see how the depth has been created just by adding a little bit of a highlight to the coordinated ink areas. Let's see if I can save this down here a little bit. By adding a little more pink there, I might be able to hide that a little bit. All right, a little bit here, and then we'll call it a day. Okay, now I do have a little bit of a smudge, left-hander's problem, always dragging my knuckle through the ink. So this is an unexpected little tip here. I wasn't planning on sharing this with you, but hang on a second. When you have those smudges, this is the best way to get rid of it. This is called a sand eraser. This is from the company Tombow. It's a Tombow Mono Sand Eraser. And very gently, when you have one of those smudge marks, you just kind of in a circular motion, go over that smudge very gently. And what you're actually doing is you are sanding a layer of paper away. So that's why you don't want to grind at it hard. You'll really rip your paper, and you'll see that. So just go in very lightly. You might have to do it a couple times. And you will slowly get rid of that smudge. All right, I'm gonna stop there because I still have some stenciling to do, so I'm gonna be okay with that. All right, before we get to that stenciling stage, what I'm going to do is give some shadowing underneath their bums a little bit. So looking under her bums, she's sitting here in a yellow area. So I'm going to come in with just my yellow, and I'm going to create just a darkened area where the pressure of her sitting on the bubble would create that kind of a shadow. So very lightly, I'm adding the yellow. I am not pressing hard at all. I'm just really scraping the top of the paper very gently. And here with Tia, I'm going to use my purple pencil and just ever so gently add some shading here. Very gently. I think what I'm going to do is carry on a little purple here and a little purple here as I'm looking at it. See, that's one of those things I could just play with all day, adding a little more here and a little more there. Okay, sometimes with pencils you can brush them out a little bit with your finger, but I think I'm just going to leave it at this right now. You know what? I'm going to play with this just a tad bit. Hang with me. I need to blend that out a bit. Okay, there. That's better. I'm happy with that now. All right. I'm going to jump ahead and do the wings. That way they'll be dry before I get to the stenciling. All right. When I do wings, I like using a glitter pen. I start typically with my darkest colors closest to the body, and I just very gently add a small amount of the dark color. Then I come in with my next lighter color and I blend over top. And believe it or not, these pens stay wet just for enough time that I can get a halfway decent blend. Some of them I'll leave solid. I won't do any blending. Okay, finish this one off. I'll come in with the dark purple again. And like I said initially, you know, whatever colors you decide to use to make your bubbles, you need to think about that and coordinate your other colors that you're using, the colors for your wings. I try to coordinate all my colors. It just makes a nice flow. The other thing you could do with the wings is simply use a clear pen with glitter. That adds a really nice effect too. All right. I think I'll call it a day on her wings. Then I'm gonna flip over here. He has just really tiny areas. So in that case, I just come in and I dot up and down, tiny little dots using my pen. Now I'm not going to get every single little white space by doing this, but I'm okay with that because I kind of like seeing the white. Kind of gives it another layer. So I'm not too terribly particular about this. I just add those dots, and I think as you can see, it does create a good wing. It's not too bad at all. Let me add a little pink there. Now I'm happy. Okay, let's do that white part. As soon as I get that to dry. Now, I'm going to come in now with the Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White ink. I think one jar of this will last an entire lifetime. I've had it, oh my goodness, so many years, I can't even tell you. And if it gets too thick, I just spritz the top of this with some water to loosen it up a bit, or I add water to my lid. I don't want to get too much ink on my brush. So what I do, I always start with a triangle. I think this is something I learned a while ago. I make a triangle and follow the lines of the bubble. Okay, let me get a little bit more of that ink. I try to get it down to a nice point. I'm sure this is difficult to see, so I'm going to hold it up. I hope you can see that triangle there that I created. Once I have the shape of the triangle, I'm going to add a little water here to help me out. That was probably far too much. Okay. Okay, now I'm just going to fill in that triangle with some more of this white ink. You can layer this. You let each layer dry and you can come in and make it definitely whiter. Once I get a triangle in, I typically make another shape similar to a square or a rectangle. I'll tell you what I did. I Google searched bubbles, images of bubbles at one point, and I just looked at a ton of different bubbles that either people created or they were actual bubbles, and I tried to get an image in my head that would stick of reflections and the different shapes of reflections. So that's where I found, you know, these rectangles came in, these triangles I would see. I would also see people put dots around that perimeter of the bubble itself. Now, that's going to dry rather quickly, actually. And if I want it to be whiter, I can just go in and put another layer on that. So here, let me do one here in a darker area so that it stands out a little bit more. Okay, starting with a triangle. Again, you don't have to. It's just, this is my mode of doing it. You do it any way you want. And this time I'm going to put, I think, just that kind of rectangular shape down here. And then a few little lines. The more you play with making bubbles, the better you'll be. It took me a few bubbles to get to feel comfortable making the triangles without them becoming way too big. But that's how we learn. You just keep practicing. I hope you can see that. And I put them in different areas. I don't always put them on the same side or anything like that. Just because, you know, I think with a bubble, you have so much reflection coming from all over. There's all kind of light sources that would be bouncing off of a bubble. So just play with it. I don't think you can go too wrong making them this way, especially. All right, let me get... All right, let me just do a couple dots here of the ink. Get that triangle a little better shape, and I'll move on to another one. So you just continue adding these triangles and squares and dots. Again, staying near the perimeter of that bubble. You don't want to go in any further than that. When I first started doing this, I would just practice on scrap pieces of paper. Now, here's going to be my way to hide my mistake here. I'm going to put a triangle over this area. And again, only you and I are really going to know that it's there, and this was a mess up on my taping inabilities. So there, that covered that up nicely. No one's really ever going to know that I had a mess up there. So there's always a way. I let you know, we all make mistakes. There is no doubt we all make mistakes. Sometimes I think they're kind of fun because they push you to another level of creativity to come up with a way to cover it. So keep that in mind. It's just another approach to being creative when you make a mistake. And it's fun to come up with ways to fix them. All right. I think you're getting the idea by now of how I create these bubbles. Let me add a little more over here. I want a nice reflection here. Again, the more you do these, you know, the smoother your lines will be. You'll feel more confident. And it's just, again, it's like everything else. Practice, practice, practice. And you get better each time you do it. And when you make a mistake, you come up with a good way to fix that mistake. All right, I think I will just add, bear with me, I'll just add a couple more of these little reflective areas, giving them all a few seconds to dry. Now this P.H. Martin's ink comes in tons of different colors. So I personally have never tried any color other than the white, but I was at a local box store, big box craft store not too long ago, and I saw that there are several different shades of this. So it might be something you want to consider if you need to make some highlights, or you want to add some other dimensions to your cards. This might be another supply to add to our endless crafting stash that would be fun to have. Okay, I'm going to do this one quickly. Okay, now let me clean off my brush really quick, because this definitely dries very thick. It's, as you can see, I can almost peel it off on my work surface here, but make sure you clean your brush good. You don't want that ink to stay on there long. Okay, that's good. All right, I'm going to give this a couple waves to get that to dry. And then for the stamping, or I'm sorry, for the stenciling, let me grab that, my favorite flower leaf stencil, and I'm just going to place it over, you'll see, I'll be moving it all around. I'm just going to try to cover up the majority of the white spaces. But keep in mind, these are bubbles, and bubbles are see-through. So you want a light coat of this stencil coming through some of our bubbles. So I'm going to pick, let's see, I think I'll stick with that purple shade. And I'm going to just very, very lightly fill in around those white areas. I'm going over the bubbles a little bit, but very lightly. And then when you lift, you can see some of that stencil. So again, I'm really trying to focus on that white area, but if some of it goes into the bubble, I think that's going to create the illusion more so that it's a bubble, because it'll appear to be see-through. Not sure if you can see it, but there's a little bit behind these so that you get a little bit of the stenciled image there. All right, I'm going to get a little bit down here in the corner around our little one. And I want just a little bit here. Okay. Look, I get so picky. Okay, there we go. There we go. I'm happy with that. Okay, I'm going to stop there while I'm ahead. And remember, clean that stencil off as soon as you can. Again, I'm just using a wet cloth to wipe mine down. Oxides clean off very, very easily. All right, let's finish up this card. I did on the original card, if you want to take a peek, I'll show you here. On the original card, I put around a faux frame with a marker, and I was really disappointed when I saw that. I didn't like that shade of purple, so I'm not going to do that this time, and I'm going to see what it's going to look like on a card without the faux frame. So here's my 6x9, folded in half, scored at 4.5, and folded. I'm going to just use my pencil to crease that. I'm going to use the Designer Dry Clear Art Glitter Glue. Doesn't that, the name of that always makes me wonder. When I first started buying this glue, or the first time I actually ever saw this glue, art glitter glue, I'm thinking, oh no, please no glitter. I don't want glitter. I just want glue. Then after I did some reading and I found out, no, there is no glitter. You're good to go. It turned out to be my most favorite white glue ever. Okay, I'm going to just eyeball this, get it as close to center as possible. Now, if you wanted to add a sentiment, my goodness, you sure could. There's plenty of space on this card to add sentiment if you wanted. Okay, so here it is without the frame, without the faux frame on it. And I kind of like that clean white look. Now, a black faux frame would have looked really good too, though. I could have done that. Now, I'm going to just lay this on the top so you could see what it would be with the purple. Without a doubt, the faux frame makes it pop. And it just kind of gives it another layer effect. But I also like the clean look of no faux frame. So your preference, however you would like to do that. So wasn't that easy? Weren't those some easy bubbles? Take your time. You'll do better than me. Take your time making those bubbles and adding your white ink to that. However you choose the type of ink, it's up to you. But take your time. I'm sure you'd be neater than I was on these, but I think you got the gist too. Hey, thanks so much. Totally appreciate every one of you that take the time to watch my videos. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.